Ooh, awesome. Thank you. Great. Okay. How are we looking on our guests? We're good? All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think we will go ahead and get started in the interest of time. So thank you everybody for joining us here today. Welcome to our webinar, Navigating Post-Grad Life with GlobeMed and Beyond. This is presented by the Knowledge and Skill Sharing and the Student Support Committees of the GlobeMed Alumni Association. So we are so happy you guys have all joined us here today. We're really excited to have a great panel with our amazing alumni panelists and to tell everybody a little bit about what the GlobeMed Alumni Association is. So a quick overview of our agenda. So a little bit of introduction, followed by the alumni panel, and then the question and answer session. And then how to get involved with the GAA, followed by the closing. So for the quick intro, the tech guidelines, you should have all been muted upon entry. So if it happens to, switch or anything, please make sure that you're on mute so we can hear everybody. If you have any questions throughout the panel, please feel free to put it in the chat box if you are in the Blue Jeans app, and that way we can moderate that for the question and answer session. As a quick thank you to the student support and the knowledge and skill sharing committee members who helped on this. And we will get started. Okay, so a quick GAA introduction. Who are we? So we are a network of over 4,500 GlobeMed alumni from 68 chapters since 2006. So there's some past and present chapters in there, and we're obviously growing thanks to our very large GlobeMed presence on all the undergrad campuses. So this is a very exciting time for us. And we're comprised of professionals, adventurers, travelers, movers, and shakers, to be very corny, but basically change makers who are still interested in pursuing the mission that we came into GlobeMed as undergrad for the mission for global health equity and social justice, and we're continuing that in all of our different professional endeavors. And yeah, so with that being said, we have 3 of those amazing alumni from this GAA here with us today, and so I will pass this on to Megan Kennedy, who will be introducing the panelists, and she will also be moderating the panel and also the question and answer.
So hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today, and a special thank you to our alumni panel. These are some amazing alumni, and I'm really excited to moderate this conversation, particularly because some alumni of my own alma mater, UCLA, is here today. So first off, I'll introduce Christina Lai. She graduated from UCLA in 2011, which seems like a bit ago at this point. She then got her MPH from Emory in global epidemiology, and she is currently an epidemiologist based in Atlanta, Georgia. Next, we have our lovely Sarah Andres, who I also had the pleasure of working with at GlobeMed headquarters, where she was a program director there. Sarah graduated from Rhodes College in also 2011, and then spent 2 years at Global headquarters, then transitioning to her current role at Global Health Corps. And finally, we have the lovely Austin Armstrong, who is also a Rhodes College alum, graduating in 2014, and is currently a third-year medical student at the University of Arkansas, and is hoping to then pursue a residency in internal medicine. So welcome to all of our panelists, who I think are still on mute. Who I think we need to get off of mute before I delve into the first question.
Yeah, here, do you want me to try to unmute them? This is Desi.
Yes, please.
Okay.
It also looks like I can just press the space bar to unmute myself
Oh,
and then become muted again.
Oh, wow.
Can you hear me?
yes.
Great.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Well, now that we have all of our panelists able to speak on the current topics, so one of the things we really want to focus on is just kind of your transition from student to alumni, to working professional, to graduate student. So a lot of times we know that that path is not necessarily a direct one, but oftentimes there are a lot of defining moments that helped you get to where you are today. So we're hoping you could kind of reflect back on your time since graduation, kind of look at that path, tell us what it looked like, maybe point out some key defining moments, and particularly focus on those first few years after graduation. And why don't we start with Austin, because he's unmuted.
All right. Hi, y'all. So as my introduction said, I'm Austin. I'm currently a third-year medical student at University of Arkansas. I feel that out of the three panelists, my path was probably the most formulaic, and that it was college, then medical school. But I think it kind of belies, it's not the true nature of it. It wasn't exactly that cookie cutter. I still had a lot of uncertainty that I think a lot of us go through nearing the end of our college journey, and leaving our GlobeMed family that's become so close and supportive of all of us. For me, I ended up taking one gap year in between my time at Rhodes and then starting medical school. And during that time, I worked as a medical scribe and took some postgraduate classes because I was a non-science major, and so I still had some prerequisites to finish. So for me, in retrospect, it seems easy to say that it was just this smooth transition, but really it wasn't, because I think for all of us in this journey, both professionally and personally, there's always obstacles along the way. I was particularly fortunate because after graduating college, I lived with three fellow GlobeMed alums. I told you we're like family, we just stick. And that for me was a wonderful environment because college forms so much of your identity. And, with GlobeMed, we have our sort of cultish identity and how close we are together, which I love. And so it's kind of dizzying, when you're first put out there in the real world and you wonder, am I on the right path? Is this truly what I want to do? And all those same questions that have been bubbling under the surface throughout college are still really there. So for me, staying in touch with really all GlobeMed alum, but particularly those that were on the path that I was choosing to pursue was really helpful. We had some older alums, Anahita is one name, Sarah and Alex might recognize. So I really sought to maintain those connections and people whose journeys I was wanting to emulate, and that was important. And so I would say staying in touch with all the GlobeMedders and people who really energize you, who help see your passion and can motivate you to stay true to what they also believe to be your passion. I would say those are some critical things in addition to really trying to follow in the footsteps of those whose journeys I felt would best mirror mine. So that's sort of something there. I don't know if I want to hand the microphone to somebody else.
Yeah. How about Christina? Jump on in. Can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
Yeah, well, to echo what Austin said, it's definitely not a linear path. It wasn't for me either at all. And so after I graduated, I think, you have this really nice community in GlobeMed while you're in college, and then you leave, and then you kind of miss it a lot. But for me, so I actually, I moved after I graduated. I moved to Uganda where we had done our grow trip with Megan. Um, and uh, and then I ended up working with one of GlobeMed at Columbia's partners, Gwetji. So I kind of got my GlobeMed fix in another way. And that was a really invaluable experience for me. Just like to learn from an amazing organization and amazing people and just see what it looks like to really dedicate yourself to serving people either in your community or others, and how to do that on a pretty small but scale, but one that's like so impactful. And then I worked there as a monitoring and evaluation officer, and then I kind of got to a point in that experience where I realized that to really have a meaningful impact, I needed more skills than my undergraduate degree um, could give me. And so then I was a microbiology major in college, so that was not at all related to nonprofit work, but I made it work. And so I decided to come back and get an MPH, so a Master's in Public Health in Epidemiology. And that for me was really about getting more data skills. And like, I really loved epidemiology from the first time that I heard about it. And I wanted to get these data skills, more focusing on like infectious disease surveillance and on like global health programming around that. Um, and so, and I think like, so then, I mean, in between that, I'm jumping around, which is much like my path kind of jumped around. But I worked different jobs. I like moved countries, like I ended up at Emory in an MPH program, which was great, but it was definitely not linear. And moved from working part-time at a place to then being an MPH student. And then from there, I really got to explore a lot, which was fun and important in finding my own path. And so I got to get my feet wet in research, in more applied public health, and in working with nonprofits a bit more. And then basically, I kind of like my focus again was kind of getting more skills, and I really found that it was easier in a way to get skills right here in Atlanta or where I am, as opposed to trying to fly off somewhere and get them. And also being able to contribute to my own community. So then right after my MPH, I worked at a local health department right here in Atlanta as an infectious disease epidemiologist. And I got a lot of great experience there, including in outbreak investigations and community health assessments, and just in like, can you hear me? Okay, in a lot of stuff. And then and we got to be involved in a lot of global health activities, including like Zika virus response, the Ebola response, just a lot of things. And then, in the evolving process of your career, I kind of felt like I wanted more skills in other areas and in data analysis specifically. So now I'm more in clinical research and trying this out for now. So.
Sarah.
Yeah, well, I will definitely also echo that my path has not felt linear. I guess I would say it's maybe felt linear, but with some big breaks and blips along the way. So it's linear in the sense that I graduated college and then had my first job and now I'm at my second job. But between all of those and within all of that, there was a lot of here's and there's and ups and downs. So I didn't know I was going to work at the headquarter office when I graduated college. So I did my grow internship right after I graduated. And then it wasn't until later in the summer that I found out that I was going to be working at the headquarter office. So that summer felt very turbulent and uncertain. And in fact, I remember when I applied to the headquarter job, I was I had so much imposter syndrome and I was just like, there's no way I'm the right person for this job. And I didn't get it. And so it was like I had this moment of like, oh, okay, like dodge that bullet. And then they called me back 2 weeks later and another position had opened up and they wanted me to fill it. So it was just this very turbulent up and down. I didn't get it. I did get it. Situation that was very makes for a great story, but was not so fun to go through right after graduating college. And so I worked there for 2 years, and it was definitely one of the most valuable and growth-inducing periods of my life, especially professionally. The staff at the GlobeMed headquarter office, at least when I was there, and I imagine it's fairly similar now, are working, like 2 to 3 full-time jobs crammed into one person's role. So it was just like drinking out of a fire hose in the best way possible. And then for me, I'm someone who really thrives on really authentic connections, which is absolutely why I was so drawn to GlobeMed in the first place. I remember being at my first summit and feeling this very palpable sense of like love in the room, and it was like, whoa, I haven't seen that from another organization before, and a student organization at least. And so that really, really sustained me in my first few years out of school. And I mean, I guess I also feel like my case is a little bit atypical in that I was just like embedded in the GlobeMed network right after graduating, and almost didn't feel like I had that kind of transition out of the GlobeMed network. And then when I left GlobeMed, I was unemployed for 8 months between that job and my job at Global Health Corps. So that was also just a very interesting time period. I did that somewhat intentionally. I did not intend for it to be 8 months. It was supposed to be like 2 to 3 months. But I worked at a summer camp, which was for me really important to do something that was just the polar opposite of what I had been doing. My professional career is all about mental thought work, sitting at a desk, and I love it, and it's working with amazing people. But for me, it was really important to shake that up with some working outside, doing more physical manual labor, that kind of thing. So that for me was just very sustaining and very important to like helping me stay on this path. And then I started at Global Health Corps, which is actually very similar to GlobeMed, but working with postgraduates. So I sort of joke that my professional career has just tracked wherever I am in my own life and what I'm looking for. So Global Health Corps is a fellowship program that places young professionals in health organizations in either the U.S. or East or Southern Africa. And one of the things I love about GHC, and what drew me to GHC, is we emphasize the point of the fellowship is to provide a pathway into the field for people who come from non-traditional skill sets, so people who have finance backgrounds or supply chain management roles, and that felt very familiar to me from GlobeMed, and it was very exciting to be able to continue that kind of work. And then I think in terms of like other pivotal moments, so obviously when I was at the headquarter office, I went to the summits those couple of years when I was on staff. And then since then, it's been really important to me to invest in coming back to Summit as much as I can. And I'm lucky that in my job with Global Health Corps, I have access to a professional development fund. And I'm able to use that fund to cover my flight to Summit, as well as the registration fee. And so for me, that was really important to take advantage of that resource to give myself this like jolt of energy every year of getting to reconnect with people from my chapter, people from around the network, people who are from that I know from headquarters, and even people from my partner organization that have come to Summit in the past. So that was just really important for me over the last few years to keep that connection alive.
Well, thank you all for sharing your journeys. They're all equally exciting and connected to GlobeMed, which is really exciting. From working with a partner organization to working directly at headquarters to living with fellow GlobeMedders, it really seems that you were able to bring GlobeMed into your postgraduate life. So I was hoping that you could, A, expand on that in any ways that you see relevant, such as attending summits, staying in contact with fellow GlobeMedders, however you've been able to incorporate GlobeMed into your life as alumni, and also how GlobeMed has helped you in your career path. It could be from skills to experiences to relationships, and also just to throw in another commonality of that you all went on Grow and had that Grow experience. And so if there's any way that that also has translated into your professional development. Whoever wants to start.
So kind of based on that, so the keeping in touch with other GlobeMedders, I think that for a while, I mean, like when you're in GlobeMed, you go to Summit, it's great, you meet so many people, but you really only meet them face to face once or twice. But then I think with the, being in the network and, now, flash forward X number of years from the last summit I went to, now it so happens that there's several of the people that I met at Summit from other chapters are now living in Atlanta and, and we're all in the public health field. So it's kind of like an instant network here, an instant like friends, like people that I met, like Matt Goers is here, some of you know him, Ian Bueller and Chris Moore, who I think went to Rhodes as well. They're here, and so that's been really great to reconnect with them. And, I mean, we've done similar work, and so you can still kind of rely on your buddies from GlobeMed to help you and to just or go to trivia or whatever you're doing. And then just for me also, I mean, like I said, GlobeMed kind of helped launch my career as well as, connecting with the partner organization and really just getting to learn from that and understanding, how this, it gave me the foundation so that health disparities and thinking about that is really a part of my DNA, and whatever organizations I work for, it's really important to me that their values are in line with my own. And I think that, coming from GlobeMed, that was really instilled in us as well, thinking about, what is this organization doing, what's their motivation and intention behind it, and making sure that that's in line with you. And then, I think that, there was the saying of, all health is global health. And that really kind of has come full circle to me where, I really, even though I'm not working abroad or working on international projects, I really feel that working on the health disparities that I am able to work on here in Atlanta or wherever I am, it really is part of global health, because we are working with people who, with communities that, may be more vulnerable, or working on infectious diseases that could easily become global, or just doing work with good organizations. And so, from the beginning, GlobeMed gave me a great opportunity to kind of dip my toes in global health and public health, and just exposing me to all the different options and wonderful people. And so just being able to keep that in focus no matter where I am, I think is one of the greatest gifts that I got from being in GlobeMed.
I would say sort of expanding on what I said before, all my best friends from college, we're GlobeMedders, we're part of that family. And that's continued to be something that's been very nourishing for me to have those relationships that I can rely on, and we can sort of continue to stimulate each other in that way that's just very unique to GlobeMed. Uh, I would also add that truly my experiences that I had during my time with GlobeMed directly at Rhodes College served as guideposts, that I continue to follow even now, and believe I'll continue to follow after graduating from school next year. Having worked in Nicaragua, helped cultivate an interest in Latin American health. I'm hoping to study abroad next semester for medical Spanish and healthcare related experience in Ecuador, in which I'm sure the experiences I had in Nicaragua will really be beneficial for me. On a cheesy note, I remember kind of talking about how sustaining this energy and these relationships are, because kind of echoing what Sarah said, just about this energy and this palpable love and this sense of community. Albeit, not physically present anymore and maybe not quite as tangible at all times. I remember a particularly low point during my first year of med school. I don't even remember the specifics. Probably had an exam that I just didn't do as well as I wanted to do on, compounded with family things, social stressors, whatever. And I remember going back to a journal that my GlobeMed chapter gave to me at our senior banquet night, and just everyone in our chapter had written these sweet and hilarious and just wonderful things in. And I remember reading that sort of to shepherd me through this tough time when I felt sort of disconnected. So I know that's anecdotal and just really cheesy, but it's something that I still remember. Professionally, I think my time in GlobeMed, there's a lot of organizational skills and things that you learn. Fundraising is a difficult endeavor. So now I'm still in this school setting. I'm not really out in the real world yet. So when we're still kind of enlisted in clubs and organizations, there's, some hard skills, not so hard, but skills that have come in handy. I think for me, though, other than the personal side of things and the relationships and the spirit that I carry from GlobeMed, I think something that I underestimated was the ability to understand nuance in healthcare and public health delivery systems. I think we take for granted the amazing education we get from our time within GlobeMed. I mean, really, it's like probably the level of a graduate level course, I would imagine. Coming into medical school where the majority have hard science backgrounds and kind of come from that paradigm, and disease is just biological causation. I felt really privileged to have had this education from GlobeMed and to sort of analyze things from different angles and see the array of anthropology and sociology. And I think that even though my time in GlobeMed was not really clinical, it's been an asset to my current experiences in medical school and entering that space and engaging with patients and seeing their narrative as something much more than just what's physical. And I'm really, like I said, honored and privileged to have had that because I felt like it jump-started a lot of my medical education.
I don't think I have anything to add to what Christina and Austin have just said. I echo it all completely, especially what Austin was just talking about that mindset that GlobeMed gave me. For me, that has been really valuable, and I think also something I've taken for granted. And Christina mentioned values being really important, and that's also something that I've made a conscious priority in the organizations that I've sought out and connected with over the last few years. And I've been surprised at how when I step out of the direct GlobeMed world, that baseline understanding of health equity from a social justice perspective is not a given, and that's been surprising and challenging for me to to grapple with, and I, especially because I think for me personally, I didn't realize how much I was like relying on the GlobeMed network to keep me energized and even informed about what's happening in that world. And it's been I've struggled a little bit to navigate, how do I keep myself informed and keep myself energized on all the issues that I care about. And but yeah, and then I mean, as far as professionally for me, I mean, my path is maybe a little bit different since I went through headquarters, but for me, it was that in college, I got really excited about global health, and that's what drew me to GlobeMed. But then, as I mentioned before, it was that like strength of connection that really kept me in GlobeMed and made it so special for me. And so, for me, it's my professional interests have shifted a little bit away from direct global health work and more towards the human capacity building and leadership development that I was doing at the headquarter office and that I'm doing now at Global Health Corps. And so I very much, and it's also very much partly because I had a really hard time. I can't imagine like being in an MPH program and having to settle on a track of any kind. So I'm lucky in my role now that I kind of don't have to. I get to support people who are doing all the different things, and I get to hear about their work and have that energy. But my work is supporting the people who are doing the work, and I find that really valuable for me.
Great. And it's great to see that GlobeMed has stayed an active part of all of your lives post-grad. So one of the things the Student Support Committee is really excited about launching later this year is a GlobeMed mentorship program. And one of the things that really helps in the transition into the workforce or graduate school are these mentorship opportunities. So we wanted to kind of have you maybe give an example of a mentorship opportunity or a mentor that you have had that's really helped you in your transition, and just kind of who they were, how you got connected with them, and all the better if there's a GlobeMed connection, but definitely doesn't have to be that as an example.
I can maybe start this one.
Great.
I have definitely been very lucky to experience a lot of mentorship, but almost all of it has been relatively informal in the sense that I didn't, seek out someone and ask if they would be my mentor and then set up regular Skype calls or anything. For me, the closest I've had to that is that I had the opportunity to participate in a program called the Coaching Fellowship, which connects young women to a professional coach, like an executive coach, which was a really valuable experience. And that was very formalized. It was coaching, which is actually even a little bit different from mentorship. But and I found that very valuable because I did have regularly scheduled Skype calls with my coach, and I was given homework. And the more I put into the homework, the more I got out of it and out of our sessions. And that was just very, very helpful for me. It focused almost entirely more on my like personal approach to my work as opposed to my tactical approaches to my work. But then all the rest of the mentorship I've had has been, like I said, very informal, and a lot of it has been from peers, and I found that incredibly valuable. And that's why I think a GlobeMed mentorship program can be very valuable, because we are in fairly similar demographics. I mean, at this point, I guess I am a ways out of school, but I still feel like a peer to people who are either in college or right out of school. And I've found it incredibly valuable to talk to peers, both when I was at GlobeMed, all of us were around the same age, and in my role at Global Health Corps, there's a good number of us that are really close, that are in similar professional levels, and it's the tiniest things, like I need to send an important email to our entire community, which is 1,000 people, and I just want to make sure that it's clear and makes sense, or I need to send an email to my boss and I want to make sure that the action item is called out very specifically, and so I'll ask a peer to review it and give me feedback. And then my peers have been especially useful or helpful when I've had to have hard conversations, whether that's with people who report to me or people that I report to. But that has been, it's been really valuable to have sounding boards that I can go to and bounce ideas off of, and even do cheesy trial runs of the conversation I need to have. And so for me, it's been really relieving to realize how much mentorship I've had that came from an informal capacity, because I very much felt uh, some type of way about like having to set up a formal mentorship relationship with someone. And the idea, I like the idea of a GlobeMed program because it feels very low stakes, and a way to get really valuable and professional support from people that we know are have our back.
Yeah, I would say key to what Sarah was touching on there with formality and sort of friendship and peer connection within mentorship. Um, I would say some of the best people who I would have considered mentors were really at first friends. I think friendship is key there because there is a mutual interest in your development and your best interest. I think sometimes when you try to enter into this formal mentorship, and have someone say, well, they're at place B, I want to be at place B. I mean, I said, we should try to track people that we professionally want to emulate, but at the same time, I think there's a caveat with that, and that sometimes when it's too rigid and too formal, I think you need warmth in mentorship, right? Which is why I think a GlobeMed mentorship would be fantastic. And even considering, I think it's already been utilized, as we've mentioned, some people who I would consider mentors were also peers and fellow GlobeMed alum. Um, I personally, I had a physician at Le Bonheur who I worked with, who ended up becoming a dear friend. I visited her in DC this past year, and it was something in that there was the right marriage of similar professional and personal interest. Um, not having been a GlobeMed or anything, being older, but still a commitment to social justice and how she practices medicine, um, and sort of what her core value system is. Sort of has helped her give me what I would consider the best advice, because she sort of understands how I want to be shaped, and what valuable contributions she has to that shaping. Um, but really, friends, I think mentorship carries. It seems there's a lot of heft to it, mentorship. But even just I think attending talks, like whether it's college or graduate school, MPH programs, medical programs, I'll see someone that's giving a talk, that's done public health work in Uganda, and I'll go and I'll listen and I'll glean so much from that. Granted, it's not as great as if I had lived the experience, and I'll concede, but just talking with them afterward, exchanging emails, and kind of still having like a touch of whimsy with it, and kind of engaging in that and saying like, you're somebody and I see this and this is what I want for myself, but I could really use guidance, in these realms, Um, I think that mentorship starts with friendship and warmth and shared interest in your betterment. And I think GlobeMed has all the tools for doing that. So,
Yeah, and I think, I echo everything that Sarah and Austin said about your peers can be the best mentors. Um, and, like the same thing that Sarah said, like I've found some really great friends who I admire and can trust, but even if they're exactly my peers or um, but partially that is kind of helping you decide, like, is this email okay? Is this like, what do you think about this decision? Um, but I was listening to something that it was talking about how sometimes the best mentors are peers, because there's other people kind of in the struggle with you, and other people who kind of understand where you're at, because it can seem like careers are linear, that decisions were made easily, that it wasn't as so anxiety inducing to, reach out to this person or something. But when you have someone else like with you kind of in that, it's really helpful. And then I think for me, I've also I have gotten a lot of my good mentorship from supervisors, um, either both from like Pamela Unletch at Gwaji. She's like just a powerhouse of a human and is like, she gave me my first big break in a job, and that was amazing. And, I'm forever grateful for that. But I also, again, got to witness how she, stuck to her vision, and that's really inspiring. Um, and how they are able to work on so many different issues but still have their core values in place and their core. So I think taking that personally, and then I also, right after my MPH program, one of my goal in my job, my next job first out of my master's program, was to find a place where my supervisor would be a good mentor. I think I'd worked in some internships where it was really fluid. I didn't have a lot of structure, and I really wanted that. So, with that as a goal, I was able to find a supervisor who was like extremely supportive and was able to push me where I needed pushing, and like offered up professional development opportunities, whether, presenting at conferences or working on different projects or different committees. And so I think, being on the lookout for good mentors, in this case professionally, is always important, and someone who can really take you out of your comfort zone, but kind of be there with you to help you through the sticky parts. And then, but then honestly, also, like, I think that, like, as far as the formal mentorship process, like kind of networking, meeting someone, kind of trying to set something up and say, would you be my mentor, XYZ? I've seen a lot of value in that. It's something that I'm not very good at, and I would like to work on it more. So, just like some kind of like coaching or something even sounds great to me. And I think that, I mean, you're always doing some soul searching in your career, whether you're just graduated from college or you're in it for, before you're retiring probably. And yeah, and then one thing that has actually helped me a lot is being a mentor to students. So I am a mentor for some current MPH students, and that's been really interesting, both to kind of see like where they're at, and feel good about being able to share the little experience that I've had, as well as kind of talk through, well, what was my path, what were my decisions, like why did I decide this, and so both hopefully being a great help to to other students and people coming up. It is really rewarding to be a mentor because I have to reflect on my own path, and my own, and where I want to go. So I think just all around, like, GlobeMed did give us a lot of the just really like warm mentorship opportunities, and that's the kind of mentor that I think I am, and also what I look for. And it's not a given that people will understand that and have that in mind of having this warm relationship. So anyone that you can find that really does kind of click with that can be just a wonderful mentor. And yeah.
Maybe that can be our next webinar, How to Network 101. I'll bring you all back. So I could keep asking questions, and I still might, but I would love to turn it over to the other participants. We do have the chat box going, so if you have any questions for these amazing panelists, please utilize that chat box and ask away. So while that gets going, I would love to have you each give one quick piece of advice to all of those graduating seniors out there?
I'll go.
Be like two-pronged.
Oh,
We'll start with Austin.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
One with two parts, 1A, 1B. 1A, I would say never stop. I think perseverance is key. There's all sorts of studies out there, none of which I can actively name or specify, but I think grit is just really essential for anything that you do. No matter what professional path or route you take, no matter how much uncertainty is in that mix or whatever array of options is in front of you, just being diligent, showing up, and just like not giving up, because everything is going to have trials, everything's going to have hardship, but just continuing to be there, you're going to make it through. In addition to that, I would add, don't compare yourself to others unless it's in a positive light, such as having a mentor who you're wanting to follow in their footsteps. Who's the quote attributed to? Comparison is the robber of joy. I think maybe Teddy Roosevelt. I'm not for sure. But I think that's so true. I think throughout all these stages, somebody mentioned earlier, Sarah, you mentioned imposter syndrome when you originally for joining the GlobeMed exec network. And I think that still kind of resonates with me, because you look at what we're doing and it's like, Christina, like an epidemiologist, CDC, NPH memory, like all these things that we do, it sort of doesn't seem real. Like we're older than we actually feel. At least I feel that way. And constantly comparing yourself to others, I think it's just a source of regret. That's not constructive. That doesn't really do anything productive for you. So I just think staying focused on you, being your best you, and having grit and not comparing yourself to others is the big thing. That's all like my advice.
Okay, Christina.
yes, thank you. I think one is just be open to the opportunities that come. You really don't know what's coming up, and things change. And I think, you have to keep your eyes open, and sometimes like you find a great group or a great position, and then maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe you don't get it, or maybe it changes. Maybe it's no longer, that you end up, you have to think about workplace dynamics and fun stuff like that. But be open to change and open to the opportunities that kind of come your way, and as well as always keeping your eyes kind of on the horizon for something that would be good for you. But kind of echoing what Austin said, is just be gentle with yourself. I definitely always feel like I'm just pretending every day, and someone will find out that I don't know what I'm doing on a daily basis. But we are older than we feel, and we do know things, and and I think you have to ground yourself in both just kind of like trusting what you know, and that's one of the greatest things that I learned in the past few years, is that you have to get to a point where you trust your own voice, and you do feel you just have to do it, and it's probably not going to crash and burn like you think it will, and at the same time, you do have to take care of yourself, find other things that can ground you and that can energize you, besides focusing only on your career and only on what's going on, either at your desk or in your clinic or whatever, because that really will give you the peace of mind to make good decisions, or to learn more and progress yourself forward.
I loved hearing both of those. You guys both are speaking to me directly. Um, yeah, and it all feels so resonant to me too. The things that I've been making a conscious effort to reflect on recently that I wish I could have done more consciously earlier in my 20s is slowing down. And I really like, Christina, that the way you said being gentle with yourself. When I did that coaching fellowship, at the very end of it, my coach asked me what were my takeaways from all like the 3 months that we had talked on Skype. And I could boil everything she had said down to "you're fine." Like that was I just needed to calm down and be really thoughtful about was the growth I was pursuing growth that I wanted for my own sake, or was I taking on an expectation from other people that I grow in certain ways? And for me, it was not overt pressure that I was feeling, so it was a little bit harder for me to dig deeper into where my motivations for pursuing the things I was pursuing, and it's been hard but very valuable to be very critical about why I'm doing what I'm doing and making sure that it's for myself and for the right reasons and not because it's what I think someone should be doing. And then I've come to realize how much I really value curiosity, and I was sort of thinking about this in the previous question about mentorship too, that I've just let my curiosity run wild in my professional life, and I've frequently found myself asking questions of mentors who are further along in their careers, and I'll ask questions that I'm like not totally sure are okay to ask, but and I usually wind up saying that, but it's opened up conversations that I've found very valuable about how people have navigated situations when they were younger, when they were earlier on in careers, or what they wish they had done, or um, and so for me, it's that curiosity and slowness that I'm really trying to cultivate, and then um, it's also just been, especially as I'm getting a little bit older, it's been so important for me to um, build in practices to my daily life that support the work I'm doing. So for me, that's like a movement exercise practice that I have to be able to be moving around, and especially since I'm sitting at a desk all day. And then a creative outlet. So I just learned how to play the ukulele, and it's so much fun and like shockingly easy if anyone wants to try a new instrument. And I've been learning more about graphic design, which I've been interested in for a while. So just creative outlets for me are really important. But in general, it's just been really important for me to reflect on what I need to cultivate in my life that gives me that stillness and slowness and clarity that I definitely need.
Well, thank you all so much. We just got a couple of questions coming in. If panelists are okay with going over just a little bit of time, I can throw them out there. How do you feel? Fabulous. So the first one is for Christina. And the question is, how did you know epidemiology was for you, and what do you like most about it now?
Ooh. So I knew epidemiology was for me. I was always interested in like infectious diseases and in like outbreaks, and I didn't even know epidemiology was a thing. Kind of like how I didn't know that public health was a thing until joining GlobeMed, and then I kind of just through some, I don't know, random internet searches found epidemiology, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want. This is everything that I like, and I still love it. I think I learned that it's way broader than I ever thought it was back in the day, and I think like there's a lot I didn't know about it. It's, you can have, I like that you can do infectious disease epidemiology, you can do chronic disease epidemiology, you can use it in terms of like training application skills, like data analysis,
Maybe you can tell John.
that's what I like about it, that it is just so versatile and like
Oh, just to pause
someone
for a second. I think we're getting some pretty harsh feedback.
He just got Roy Gilbert to invest in the boatyards.
better.
Okay, I think
Yes.
thank you. I think whoever had the feedback put themselves on mute. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Christina.
No problem. I think Sarah mentioned like you couldn't imagine picking like one specialty in an MPH program, and I have tried really hard not to do that, which has been difficult because there's a lot of pressure to kind of find like one thing that you love or even one disease that you want to focus on, which is just not me. I've always just been more of a generalist, and I think that can bring it's harder, and I've had to jump around a bit and explain that. But I think for me in creating the kind of career in epidemiology, just in general, that I want, it has worked for me so far to jump from infectious disease to chronic disease to global to domestic, and I'm just going to keep doing that as long as people will let me. But yeah, I like a lot about epidemiology. I could talk about it for a long time, so let me know if you want to talk about it more.
And the next question is for Sarah, which is, how did you know you wanted to work with GlobeMed post-grad at global headquarters?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that so when I was in college, I got to go to the summit my sophomore year. And I remember at the summit, so before that I had been interested and pretty excited about GlobeMed, but being at the summit for me was a big game changer because it was that connection to the national network, and I mentioned before just feeling this very palpable sense of love, which might not seem like the logical thing to base my career decisions on, but for me it's worked out really well, and it's been a very conscious choice. I have just recognized about myself that I'm very, very drawn to really tight communities that have really are really rooted in values and authentic connections, and that like peer learning we were talking about before. And I just felt that so clearly from being at the summit, and that was it. Like from that moment, I wanted to GlobeMed basically became my degree program at Rhodes after that. Like I was doing I was still really interested in my other courses, but my GlobeMed time, like I would go to a GlobeMed meeting over studying for an exam. It's just that prioritization felt really significant for me, and so yeah, I just knew that felt pretty clear to me that I wanted to be able to give back to that community what I had gotten from it, and to continue to support other chapters, and then what was neat about it is that I think I mentioned before too that I didn't originally get the job and then got the job later, and I had a lot of imposter syndrome going into it, and part of that was because I hadn't ever been a co-president, but my role was to be advising co-presidents, and so I really was like, oh, I haven't been in this role. Like I've been on the executive board, but I don't know how much I can truly be useful to co-presidents. And Maya Cohen, who was the executive director when I was there, who is and was and is a very treasured mentor, really just was like, no, you are a leader to people, whether you like it or not, whether you see yourself that way or not. And that was so powerful for me, and it became, and I could see a really clear shift once I started to truly believe that. I could see a really clear shift in my own work, and that became really important to me to give other people that same experience, and make sure that people that no one felt like they were limiting their potential because they didn't have the credentials or they hadn't held XYZ leadership position. And so that personal leadership journey for me was really important, and felt really important to continue on. And then I saw the other question about if you could describe GlobeMed in one word. So I'll answer that one too. The word that comes to mind is together, which comes from one of the core values that GlobeMed identified a couple of years ago, which was growing together. But since I can only choose one word, I'm going to choose together.
Okay, and that's a perfect way to close. Austin and Christina, would you also like to share your one word to describe GlobeMed?
Oh my.
I can go. I'd go back to the word that I came up with before, which is values. I think that just all the other grow trips and activities and global health U things, like they're super valuable, but I think what I've carried with me is just the values that were instilled.
Y'all, one word. Am I on right now?
I thought y'all might have been your word.
Oh my gosh, it could. Couldn't it though? It's so inclusive. It's us, it's everyone. Y'all, that's it. Boom. Y'all. It's y'all.
I love it.
That's amazing.
Sweet. Thank you, Sarah.
Well, thank you all for participating. This has been such a great discussion. And now I will turn it over.
Okay, thank you all for the amazing discussion and sharing your experience. We really appreciate all the time. And in the interest of time, I know it's late on the East Coast. We will be sending out a program that goes over more of the GlobeMed Alumni Association structure. So we'll put some descriptions of the subcommittee descriptions there as well for people to refer to. But this is just the overall structure, and this is a little bit about what we've done as an association and where we're going. And historically, the GAA has hosted the alumni reception at Summit. We hosted our first annual digital retreat in fall of 2017, hosted by the subcommittees and featuring alumni speakers. And as Megan mentioned, the mentorship program will be coming up this fall by the Student Support Committee. And I will turn this over now to Desi, who has some updates about the Knowledge and Skill Sharing Committee.
Hi everyone, this is Desi. Thanks Mizuki, and thank you to Megan and all of our amazing panelists. But yeah, I'll keep it really brief, but with the Knowledge and Skill Sharing Committee, we're hoping over, I guess probably starting like the fall 2018 as well, is having a more like robust like alumni kind of GHU style learning, and that can look like webinars or other forms of learning together. So we're still exploring all those options. And then we also have consistent GlobeMed alumni spotlights that are highlighted on the blog as well. And they all kind of tie into this theme of learning from each other. So those are things to look out too for with the KSS programming to come. And then that's all from me. Thank you.
And I think I'm last. I'm Alex. Thank you. This is where I would give roses and thank you cards to all of our speakers. Thank you for your time. I hope you rest easy, especially if you're on the East Coast. And otherwise, we will be sending out more information. You'll see that stuff. And hopefully you can reach out to the GlobeMed mentoring program and kind of get connected with all the great people that are in this network. And it's wonderful to be a part of. So GlobeMed love to everyone for joining, and I hope to catch up with many of you soon. See y'all later. Y'all.
Bye.
think that's it. So we'll keep in touch online, and we'll talk with everybody soon.